So thank you everyone for joining us today for I'm calling it the inspection interview because we're talking about, for the most part, a lot of the important things that people need to know about for their private home inspections when they're buying a home and if they currently own a home. And so overall, we're going to talk about the most common issues and the repairs that come up during the private home inspections. So buyers can understand and what to expect when they have a home that's in good condition and one that may not be in the best condition, right? So you know the differences with that. We'll also discuss some more important things about home inspection as well. And today I have Patrick Nolan with Integrity Inspection Group to help me with this interview. He's a certified home inspector with over a decade of experience. He's a co-owner of Integrity Inspection Group. He's a respected member of the International Association of Certified Home Inspectors. I think I said that right.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay, good. And so then they're known for their thorough home inspections, and he's done over 3,000 home inspections, so very well knowledgeable in the metro area for private home inspections. They're also one of my preferred home inspectors as well because they do a great job. So thank you for joining me, Pat. I greatly appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Patrice. I'm happy to be here and represent integrity.
You're welcome. Okay. So, first question is going to be when we have client. Oh, and by the way, anyone that's joining us that has any questions, feel free to put them in the comment section at the end. I will look at them and then we will address those as well. So again, the first question is when we have clients getting a home inspection, a lot of times they go into it thinking that, it's possible to find a home that needs absolutely no repairs. The home is perfect. And while every now and then, you are going to get a home inspection that's going to be very, very good, but there's still going to be stuff on there. Is it correct to say that's pretty much impossible to find a home where the inspection report states everything is perfect with the house?
Yeah, so going on 11 years now and a few thousand inspections, I'm still waiting to find the perfect one. So yeah, no matter what, there's something that's going to be in the report. Most of the stuff is it's kind of maintenance based, but every now and then you get the bigger issues. But no, I haven't found the perfect one yet.
Right. And just to reiterate, that's including new construction, like you built the home from scratch, right?
Yeah, new construction. I'll still come out with a laundry list full of stuff, and again, most of that's minor stuff, punch list stuff. But yes, that's accurate.
Okay. And so also getting homes inspected. Inspectors indicate in reports that even though some items don't necessarily need repair, they are code violations. And so can you explain to people why code violations don't necessarily have to be corrected unless the city requires them, such as when they need a certificate of occupancy?
Yeah, so technically, we aren't code inspectors. Obviously, we have to have a good feeling for codes in certain areas. A lot of that stuff will get grandfathered in by the city or the municipality, and different cities, different municipalities work off different versions of the code. One could be working off a version from the 90s. One could be working off um, one of the most current codes. So kind of depends city to city, township to township. Um, but yeah, as a private inspector, we aren't necessarily code inspectors, but you have to have a good feel for them. Yeah.
Okay. And then regards to FHA and VA financing, there are some items on the report that the appraiser may require to be fixed prior to closing, even though these are very minor issues. And so my thought is mostly that, the appraiser is not going to have, for the most part, a very detailed visual inspection when they're trying to determine the value of the home, like a private home inspector is. Would you say, is that more so the reason why a lot of times the appraiser is only looking for like, some of the small things that could be trip hazards and things like that if they're going to flag them during the.
Yes. So it's definitely they're not as thorough as a private home inspector would be. They're more safety based issues. So like you said, trip hazards, older houses. painted. They want all the wood painted. They want some of the old paint that's kind of flaking away, scraped off because it could be lead based. They don't like wood rot. They'll recommend, or not recommend, but make you put GFCI protection into some areas. The ground fault circuit interrupters, so little test reset outlets. They'll want those in certain areas, but they won't go nearly as far as we go as a private inspector.
Okay. And when a buyer is getting their possible new home inspected, what would you say is the best way for them to perceive the report in terms of if this home's, is in an overall good condition, or if it's home they should strongly consider not buying, even if the seller is willing to help with some of the repairs, or all of them, actually?
Yeah, I think that's more personal, opinion based. But as far as a lot of the repairs that are needed, yeah, some are bigger, but a lot of stuff is like kind of out of sight, out of mind. There's rarely a time where I'll say, don't buy this house. I try to, stay away from that comment in specific. I'll get my message across one way or another in the report. But as far as me telling somebody not to buy the house, that's not up to me. I'm just here to tell them the condition of the house, and they can go from there and negotiate or what have you. Now, if people are willing to fix stuff, my opinion on it is, if it were me and I was on that side, I would say, hey, let me have a credit for it and let me hire somebody that I trust, because the homeowner, might want to do it themselves, or hire a buddy down the road who's not really, versed in that field or specific area. So, but yeah, I try not to tell people not to buy the house. Just try to, gently get my message across as well as I can, and then they can make their decision based on that, on the
Yeah, I
report.
mean, like you said, for me, when I'm talking to buyers, I'm always saying that it's usually best to get concessions versus, money off the price, or help getting the seller to fix some things, because the idea is the seller wants to make the most they can off the property in most cases. So if they're gonna fix it, they kind of want to do it as cheaply as possible. I'm not gonna live there, so they
Exactly.
don't care as much. And at
Yep.
least concessions, you don't have to worry about redoing something that they had done. You can at least get money towards, getting it done yourself.
And hire somebody that you trust.
Yes, yeah, that also, of course. Okay, so what are the main issues or repairs you see come up in almost every inspection?
Um, well, I would say, probably 95% of the houses would have, water control issues. Um, so grading around the house, ground slope, um, might not seem like too big of a deal, but you want the ground pitching away from the house, to get the water away, and it goes a long way. Um, so that's pretty much on every one of my inspections. Um, the majority of the inspections will have some electrical, deficiencies where, again, code or standards have changed over the years, and there's cheap, easy fixes that can give more safety into the house. Um, deferred maintenance, paint work, caulk work. Um, so a lot of that, find a good amount of mold and attic spaces, and pests, critter evidence, things like that. A lot of it's maintenance based.
Okay. And it sounds like you answered this question already, but if you want to kind of elaborate, why do you think these issues come up the most often, and what would be the best ways to prevent them from happening? Or maybe like because it is maintenance, right? Like maybe some of those things, maybe talk about like how often they should be looking into those things or getting them cleaned or checked out.
Yeah. Well, I think, a little work every now and then goes a long way in preserving the life of components, or like your mechanicals, your HVAC, for example, keeping them tuned up, once a year, having a professional, licensed contractor come out and get your furnace serviced, making sure you're getting the most efficiency you can on it, prolonging the life of it. You give them $100 a year, it goes a long way. Um, as far as like, paint work, caulk work, every handful or several years, you just want to maintain the house. And again, just a little bit of work on the outside goes a long way, keeping the weather away from it, keeping water out of the basement or the crawl space, and, cleaning your gutters, out of sight, out of mind area type things, like getting into the attic space, once or twice a year, and, looking for any red flags there, whether it be mold or roof leaks or critter evidence, or, there's a number of things, but I think in general, yeah, a little maintenance goes a long way in protecting the investment.
Okay. Um, what would you say? What was this question? Yeah, you already answered that. Yeah. So you're saying most of these are maintenance things that you come up with. So maybe just let's maybe talk about some of the major issues that you usually find in inspections.
So some of the bigger things that we find a lot, again, mold in attic space, and a lot of that is attributed to insulation, air leaks, letting heat and moisture from the house escape into the attic space, and then kind of combined with ventilation. So once it gets there, not enough airflow to get it out of the attic space um, before it hits the cold roof in Michigan wintertime, and all that moisture will condense and turn to water, and your nails will start to drip water, and you'll get some mold growth on the roof sheathing. So that's one of them that we see a lot. Others would be foundation issues. So not so much with the poured concrete walls, but the cinder block type foundations. You'll get um, movement, which again is all caused by water on the outside, hydrostatic pressure, not getting the water away. So, say grading, for example, or you have a downspout with no extension on it, and it's dumping a bunch of water right at the corner of the house. Well, in wintertime, that water collects, it freezes, the soil expands, puts pressure on the wall, and then you'll get some foundation issues. So it's all repairable, but them type of things, um, the foundation repairs obviously can get pricey really quick, and same thing with the mold growth. You get in an attic space that's full of fungal growth, and it can get upwards of a few $1,000s to fix. Um, but it's all correctable. There's nothing that I came up with or have come up with in my inspections that can't be fixed.
Good to know. Okay.
Yep.
I think you
And
already.
other major things, I guess, would be electric. You know, uh, where you can tell kind of a DIY type job was done, and people not knowing any better, and wiring things the wrong way, or putting the wrong size breaker attached to whatever wire it was attached to. So I think um, it's probably electric, water control. Those are probably the two bigger, um, the most common things that I've come up with in reports.
Okay, and I think you kind of touched on this a lot already, but this one is just asking some of the major issues most people are concerned with, which of course we talked about mold, foundation,
Yep.
being plumbing, electrical, and structural. Um, the question was just, what would you say are the most common that come up? But maybe, yeah, it's kind of the same question. Like, why do you think that is, right? So is there anything you would add, I guess, to that?
Um, so not knowing any better. Again, with the mold growth or attic spaces, things like that. Not a lot of people go into the attics. So what could prevent it is either you getting in there or getting a handyman, somebody that knows what they're looking at up there routinely, um, can help create or help fix things before they get bigger. And it all improves the conditions, inside the house, inside the livable area. Another thing is crawl spaces. Not a lot of people like to get into crawl spaces. I don't like to get into crawl spaces. It's by far the worst part of the job, but it's part of it nonetheless. So, um, a lot of time in crawls, you won't have a vapor barrier. So there should be a vapor barrier that covers all the soil and wraps up the walls, and all the walls should be insulated, and the penetrations going up through the floor should be sealed. And, any time or money, efforts you can spend down in the crawl space is dramatically going to improve the conditions up top where you're living.
Okay. And what would you say are the drawbacks of a buyer buying an older home versus drawbacks of a newer home in terms of repairs? For example, a newer home may not be as structurally sound, as a older home, that has brick in comparison.
Yeah, so in a lot of respects, the older homes, turn of the century, early 1900s, mid 1900s, a lot of those were built better than the ones that we're building today. Um, a lot stronger wood. Um, yeah, the foundation's old. Say you got a 150-year-old house with a stone foundation. It's going to stand for another 150 years. So a lot of it's really structurally sound. I guess the drawbacks of older homes are electrical, that can be updated, um, insulation, efficiency, things like that that could that are probably the more different from the newer houses with the high efficiency mechanicals and all the air sealings that's done, and the more efficient windows, safer electric, things like that. But um, a lot of times, a lot of these old houses, they're in great shape, and then of course there's some that are not, that haven't been taken care of over the years. But structurally, you know, uh, I guess the saying is the bones are good, usually in these old ones.
Okay. And so often when people get an inspection, they don't, a lot of times get the add-ons. They don't want to pay, more to find out what's going on with the house, or to get a more thorough inspection. So
Yeah,
can you explain, what a radon test is and why buyers should or shouldn't get a radon test?
yeah. So radon, it's a natural occurring gas. It's emitted from the soil. So any part of the buildings that's touching a soil, it's recommended to get a radon test done. It started out as uranium that was left behind when the glaciers came through, thousands of years ago, and the uranium breaks down and turns into radium. Then that goes through a half life, turns into the radon gas, and the gas finds its way into the house. And then it has a short half life once it gets into the house, and it turns back into a solid, polonium 215, I believe, or 218, maybe both. But that's what's really harmful to you. It's a carcinogen. So the government would say it's the second leading cause of lung cancer, other than smoking cigarettes. Um, Now, there are some areas that are more susceptible than others. So we're based out of Ann Arbor, Washtenaw County. I think the last stat I heard was 45% of the houses that test come back high. Livingston County, that's another high area. Lenawee County, another high area. Wayne County, not so much, but there are pockets. And then you get a little north of that in Oakland County, and there's areas there that are highly susceptible to getting radon, or having. Everybody has radon. It's just how much do you have? So the only way to know is to test. And say it comes back high, it's a really easy repair, generally ranging, anywhere from say $800-900 to maybe $1,500, somewhere in that range. Sometimes it can get a little north of that. There's some variables that can make it a little bit tougher to mitigate. But generally, once them systems gets in, and all it is they try to create a vacuum underneath the slab or whatever type of grounds below the house. So it's all fan based. And once that system gets in, they're really dependable. And they'll take any numbers down, most of the time really, really low.
Yeah, so I think you kind of answered the question about type of homes more likely to have radon. So you said mostly the area. So what is about those areas that you think is causing there to have more likely to have radon?
So I think a lot of it
High
is
level,
soil
sorry.
condition. Yeah, a lot of it is soil condition. So um, in Ann Arbor, there's a lot of clay soil, and it doesn't allow for the natural paths for that radon to escape the ground naturally outside, and it increases the stack effect inside the house. So it all starts getting drawn up inside the house. So areas with, say, there's a lot of sandy soil. Um, Generally you won't get as high numbers as you would in the areas with the clay soil, but it's all soil based. And a lot of it, for whatever reason, I'm not exactly sure on the technicalities of it or the science of it, but a lot of areas with hilly terrain. So, say a city with the name or hills in the name, like Bloomfield Hills or Auburn Hills or something like that. Um, Usually we'll have some higher radon numbers. So terrain has to do with it, soil conditions, atmospheric conditions. So when you get big storms, these different pressurized systems move out that increase or decrease ground pressure. And it can change seasonally also. So when the ground freezes outside in the winter, you get a big sheet of snow or ice over it. Again, it eliminates that natural pass for the gas to escape through the soil, and it increases the stack effect in the house. So when you start turning your fans on or your furnace comes on, it starts drawing air through every crack, crevice that it can get through into the house. So there's a lot of variables that can increase, decrease, or what have you.
So what you just want, that's why when someone's getting a radon test, you want to make sure all the windows are closed because that can impact.
Yeah, windows are closed, and you want to try to just make it as normal of living conditions as possible. And sometimes it's not optimal, like the dead of summer. Um, some of these houses don't have air conditioning, so nobody wants to keep their windows closed. But technically, to get a good test, that should be done.
Okay. And then another question on that. So, sometimes people, when they have their inspection, there's radon there, they just ask for it to be removed. They don't get a radon mitigation system. But
Mm.
given the cost to just remove it, just to install the system, I mean, it just makes more sense just to have the system because it's not, super expensive for the most part, I guess.
It's not super expensive, and there are ways to kind of minimize the radon coming in. Say you have a sump pump. A lot of it, a house with a sump pump and like the hole that the crock that the pump is in, it's usually the biggest contributor to letting that gas in. It kind of fouls the drain tiles, the footing drains that are going around the house, um, and that lets it into the livable area. So one way to minimize that is to seal that crock off. So you put an airtight lid on it, and optimally it would be a clear lid, like a plexiglass lid, so you can still see your pump and the water level in there. But that's one way to help minimize the levels, and that's the first thing the mitigation company would do. And that's usually where their suction point is. It's right at the sump. So they'll put that pipe there, and then they punch out the house, attach the fan on the outside, and they run the pipe up the house. But yeah, and then going around and sealing cracks, like say you got a basement and there's cracks in the floor, penetrations through the slab where the drain pipes go or your water pipes go, air sealing those, caulk sealing those. Those are ways to help too. Keeping your fans running, like your fan on the furnace, kind of keeping that fan running. Your exhaust fans in your bathrooms, that'd help get the gas out in theory.
Okay, that's good for me. I didn't know all of that stuff either. So most buyers aren't expecting there to be critters in the attic, such as raccoons, mice, squirrels, birds,
Yeah.
what's the best way to remove these critters without killing them that can be more cost effective?
Um, well, I think the first thing is trying to prevent them from coming in. So mice, what's really common around where I'm at, are bats too. And for a mouse and a bat, they need, you know, like a hole maybe this diameter of a dime to find their way in. So sealing these areas up. So a lot of areas where they would like to get in, say where you have a roof that comes down and it meets the soffit area below it, or excuse me, you have an upper roof and then a lower roof, and the upper roof comes down and there's that fascia or the soffit right there, and they hold a little gap so the wood doesn't rot out from touching the shingles below it. But that's a direct point of entry for letting the critters in. So you seal those up, and it doesn't gotta look pretty. I see spray foam, caulk, of course. A lot of the roofers nowadays are flashing those areas, so they're putting metal flashing in there. Seen chicken wire, really fine screen chicken wire. But then when they get in, it's more or less you're baiting or you're trapping. But as far as bats, they're protected in Michigan, so you can't kill or trap them. You have to let them go naturally. And there's actually certain times of the year during their mating season where you can't do anything with them. Um, and bat removal, uh, that can get pricey really quick. Um, getting the bats out, and then the guano, their droppings that are left behind, if they're large amounts of that, that can have respiratory issues on people. And so there's mitigation that has to be done there, or remediation as far as replacing insulation, and putting this pipe in that lets them out, but that doesn't, allow them to come back in. So there's those areas where they like to get in. Another area is the vents on the roof. So say there's a ridge vent on the roof, they'll get in through those. That's another big point of entry for those. Little holes in the, say where your hose bib, where you hook your hose up on the outside, and there's little voids around there, or where the siding comes down and meets the foundation, and there's little gaps there that can let your mice or your insects, um, squirrels, things like that can get in.
Okay. Um,
You know?
so what are the parts of the home that you just can't inspect?
Well, excuse me, anything we can't see, we can't inspect. So if there is, um, say, a huge entertainment center on the wall, um, or a king size bed, or somebody's got a big closet full of storage, there's areas that we can't get to. Um, we're not allowed to poke holes in walls, or do anything damaging. So it's a non-invasive inspection, and it's limited in that respect. So sometimes, a lot of times, there's outlets that I can't get to, or windows that I can't get to without um, disturbing the homeowner's stuff, which we're technically not allowed to do. Now, some areas, I will, move some stuff. Some things are easier to move than others, and do what I can. But I guess our standards of practice is we have to check a representative number of the outlets and windows and components in the house. It doesn't have to be every single outlet. or every single window. But if I can get to it, then I'm going to test it. So really what I can't see, I can't inspect. In between the walls, I can't inspect. Obviously, I can't punch a hole into a wall and shine a light in there. We do carry thermal imaging camera, so an infrared camera where I shoot the ceilings before I go into the attic space, and it's a camera that's senses temperature differences on surfaces. So looking for either moisture, water, or insulation deficiencies, or switches and outlets that might be overheating, or I shoot the electric panel looking for something that might be overheating. So there are some tools that we have, um, that can assist us. But yeah, generally the answer to that would be what I can't see or what I can't get to, I can't inspect.
Okay. What are the most cost-effective, easy things people can do to prevent a lot of the common issues that come up during inspection, make it easier to get their home sold when the time comes, or just, if they plan on living there for
Well,
time?
yeah, so I guess industry term might say a pre-listing inspection, which I'm sure you're familiar with, which we don't do a lot of. Um, but if they want to know what's going to come up during an inspection, call us out before they're going to list their house. And then they can button up on some things. But in that respect, a lot of people don't want to know, you know what I mean? Because then they got to disclose. Um, so that's one way. Another way is just having a maintenance inspection. So you're still living at the house, you're not planning on moving anytime soon. You call us up and we just do a maintenance inspection. Same type of thing, but we give you a list of things that you can do to improve, whatever it is. And then you take that inspection out, you know, once every year or two, and kind of look at the things that need to be maintained. Um, and a little of it, or well, most of it is, preventative maintenance. So paint, and caulk, and grading, and things that are cheaply or relatively cheap and relatively easy to do, goes a long way in keeping the house, the way it should be protected.
Yeah, you said what I was going to mention with the whole pre-inspection. I mean, I put it in, my listing presentations, but the reality is, I mean, it is a catch-22. It's a matter of, if there's a lot of stuff, you have to disclose it, which could actually make it more difficult and offer accepted. But at the same
Yeah.
time, someone, writes an offer, it gets accepted, they have a good inspector and they do find it. Now people are worried about the inspection if the deal falls apart, and it does make it more harder to sell. So, I always leave it up to the
Yeah.
client, what they prefer to do. But,
Yep.
if it's something that's a big concern, probably better to go ahead and address it now, and
Yeah.
get worked on if you have the money to cover it, so you can go ahead and get the home sold. But a lot of times I find I see the pre-home inspections on the ones where they're like, oh, my house is perfect, so let's get it done. So then I
Hmm.
can use it as a selling tool to someone to waive the inspection or get a lot of offers on it. So
Yeah. So I've had that happen too, or where I've done a pre-listing inspection, and we've been around, the Ann Arbor area, for a long time now, and built up a good name. So I did that inspection, and the buyer's agent knows me and knows the job I do, and say, hey, you can depend on this guy doing a good inspection. He produces a good report. This is what needs to be done. Um, maybe you don't even need to hire somebody else to come in and do the job, that I already did, and I probably did better.
yeah, so it can go either way, and it works, right?
Yep. I think
Um,
it's a great idea. Anytime I do one of those pre-listing, I think it's a good idea. But like you said, I'm not on the listing side of it, so I understand why some people just don't want to know.
well, because that's the thing. Unfortunately, some buyers, like you said, it's not even about a bidding war. They don't want to pay for inspection, right? And then you have
Mhm.
it where they don't have a good inspector, and the inspector doesn't even notice the stuff that you would find.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so
Well, that's one thing about Michigan is uh, there's no licensing. So I don't need to be licensed to be a home inspector. Patrice, you could be a home inspector. Um, so there are ones out there that kind of give us a bad name. So I think when you're hiring an inspector, you need to do your research and interview people to make sure you're hiring somebody that's competent.
yeah, and that reminds me, because so when I first got started, I guess about 8 years ago now, um, I was told, yeah, we want to make sure you get a good home inspector. And then as I progressed, I'm like, well, I mean, people are always giving a full report, that's what I thought. But last
Mm.
year I had two of the worst. It was my listing, so it wasn't my buyer didn't use the inspector, but I had two of like the worst ever home inspection reports I've ever seen. One, it's like, maybe you have your notes when you're doing your inspection, right? But then you type it up, either at the inspection or right after so you forget anything. So when they tried to negotiate, I think they were nervous to even send the report because first they didn't send it, but they wanted, $10,000 concession and said, well, what's going on?
Yeah.
And they send me, it's literally like a notebook page paper
Yeah.
where they took a picture on their phone where you can see, the shadow of the phone. And it was like three pictures. I said, well, I'm thinking like the buyer just wrote this up because they didn't want to share it. I said, well, send the report, because he could have did something with the
Yeah.
house. I said, no, that's the inspection report, which was like,
Yeah.
I've never seen
So
that before.
there's well, that's the way they used to do it. It was like like a carbon copy checklist type thing. And you'd get a few pieces of paper at the end of it. And there's still them inspectors around, obviously, like you said, but in the last 20 years or so with technology, it's come a long way. So my reports, they include pictures, and there's arrows and circles and recommendations, videos if I need them, links to verify things from manufacturers' websites. So it's come a long way, but there's still them older inspectors that are kind of stuck in their ways, and they still just carry the clipboard around and it's checking things off, and then handing people a couple sheets of paper at the end of it.
Well, that's the second one I got on a different listing where it was a checklist, which still looked really, really old and whatever. Didn't mention much, no pictures at all.
Yeah.
At least it was a clean inspection, so it wasn't like, there was anything to, kind of go back and say, well, I need this for. But no, the one I just mentioned, it wasn't even a checklist. It was really like we wrote this out by hand on a notebook sheet of paper and sent you a picture of that. So
Okay.
that was I was not I was very shocked by that. Hope they didn't pay a lot for that inspection.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Maybe that was like maybe that was just a friend of the family, who's in the building industry, um, who did the inspection for him. And still, I work with builders and people from all different types of professions, and having that trained eye goes a long way. So there's reputable builders um, that are either agents now, or that I've inspected houses that they're buying or houses that they've built. Um, who have good things to say, who respect, the I guess my experience and my trained eye, as I say it.
well, I mean, that's what you really want as a buyer because I always tell my clients all the time. I mean, if you want to use mine, make sure it's someone that, knows what they're doing and is going to give you a thorough inspection and give you a clear report because I can't negotiate for you, to get some things, concessions or a price off or things repaired
Yeah.
if I can't even send proper evidence of what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I try to tell the people, hey, and a lot of the market kind of dictates that, over the last several years, but, lot of people think that's the purpose of the inspection, is to go back to the table and renegotiate. And I try to say, hey, that's not really what I'm here to do. But I will load up my report and detail it as thoroughly as I can to try to eliminate those questions asked afterwards. Like, I don't want to get a call from you. I'll take it, from one of my clients, but I want to set my report up to where it's, you don't have any questions of what you're looking at after I've, written it up.
Yeah, and you made another good point because I tell my buyers too that the idea is that when you're buying a used home, if you're not getting new construction,
Mhm.
right? So you're not expecting this to be a perfect house in the first place. But the reality is when you wrote your offer, which based on what you've seen visually, you're writing your offer saying that your home was worth this, that that's what you're willing to pay to purchase a home for. And then you have your inspection, the inspector's job to tell you everything about the home, but minor stuff to just an outlet not working to, if the roof is collapsing, right? Or caving in.
Yeah.
And there's gonna be major things, some things that won't be, but you won't have a perfect house. And so, we're asking for the seller to help with some of these things if that's the case. But every now and then, you do get a really good inspection, or as you would say, maybe a boring inspection. And some buyers every now and then don't ask for anything because there's not much going on. They know what they're getting. But usually,
Yeah.
there's something there and we try to get help, but we're not looking for the seller to make the home like new because it's a
It's
used
not. Yeah.
and if it was new, there'd still be stuff wrong with it. So
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
so I think you already answered this. I was asking if you recommend homeowners continue to get their home inspected after purchase to avoid unexpected major issues on the line. And I think you said yes, and then you say pretty much once a year. Is that right?
Um, if I didn't have any knowledge base on a house and I wanted to protect the investment and could afford that, I think that is just as important as having um, your furnace technician come out and make sure your furnace is safe and or your fireplace cleaned and looked at or so yeah, I think it's a good idea to have somebody that's versed in it, to have them out at least every couple of years or so.
Also for every,
It's a
say two
great
to three
idea.
years.
It's a great idea. And then you have it, say I do a maintenance inspection for somebody, and then just keep it on hand and you pull it out, and you go through it and then you walk around and go through things, have the report in hand or on your computer or on your phone and just walk around and see what I was looking at and what I flagged. And, I didn't need to do any maintenance at this point. But yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you want to add overall to this interview?
Well, I would say, and we kind of talked about it before we came live, but I would never waive an inspection during the process. Um, I think, during the market, they want to put that in there, and more than I would to make their offer, more appealing to the seller. But even if it's like, I'm buying the house no matter what, um, I would still want the inspection done just so I know what I'm getting into. Because house could look great, um, and you're prepared to buy it, but you got a few $1,000s that you're gonna have to, come up with, relatively soon. Um, so that whether it's in the deal that you're buying it no matter what. Just get the inspection done. Just an FYI thing. Here's what it looks like. Here's what can be done. But yeah, I would say that. And then also going back to the added services, and something we don't do as a company at this point. We're trying to kick it. We've been kicking it around, and most likely we'll start doing it soon. But getting sewer inspections, um, where a plumber would come in with their camera and they scope the sewer out to the road. If there are any repairs that need to be made there, that can get pricey really quick. Um, and kind of in those regards, if it's on a septic field, having your drain field inspected. Again, those are big time repairs that cost a lot of money. So you're buying the most expensive thing you'll ever buy in your life. Spend a few hundred extra dollars for these services, and at the very least, or hopefully everything comes back good, and then it's just more peace of mind.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with all that. I mean, in regards to not waiving the inspection, right? If I have a buyer that says that's what they're going to do, I need to protect myself and they're going to have some verbiage assigned to release me from liability with that decision
Yeah,
making. But, I always tell my buyers what they can do to win an offer. And that's going to be one of those things because someone, if it's a really nice house, they will do it. So it comes to how much that buyer wants that house. And there's different ways around it if you're not going to flat out waive it, right? You can waive it and say, I'm going to do informational purposes only. But
yeah,
a lot of realtors don't take that part as seriously because you're still having it before you close, right? But there's pass fail, there's not asking so much. So there's different ways to, write a strong offer and not completely waive your inspection, still know what's going on, still possibly have some negotiation room. Um,
mhm,
but at the end of the day, the buyer has to decide, what they want to do, and it's up to them. So I don't get in their way. But yeah, if
yeah,
anything, the inspection should be the last thing you're trying to um, you know, get away from when, trying to win a
yeah. I
win.
would. I wouldn't. The stuff that I've seen, there's no way I'd I'd be waiving an inspection to make a strong offer. I'll say, yeah, I'm going to buy your house, but I still want to have an inspection just so I know what I need to do.
Right. Yeah, and that's the good thing because like you said, I mean, it could be even if I mean the inspection could go very well and there could be some minor things that if you don't take care of them soon, they could become major problems. And then because you didn't have your inspection, you had no idea. And now it
Yeah,
is a problem later on
yeah,
because all of a sudden it just happens, right? You didn't think about
exactly.
it. And then with the sewer scope thing, yeah, I'm glad that you guys are considering to do that because there's just not a whole lot of inspection companies that I'm aware of that actually do that. And I'm seeing more so that it's really important to do that, especially if you're surrounded by a lot of trees and things like that. I mean, I had one, I think it was in January, like I think it had three cleanouts and two of them had never been opened before. And
Yeah,
one, it was so clogged you couldn't even put your camera in
couldn't
there.
get the
So
camera
that
through.
was
Yeah,
I mean, fortunately, it means they didn't have any like issues, but honestly, if we hadn't gotten those two clean outs open and gone through and all we got to the main, which it took cleaning out of one, it took cleaning out of both of them to get through the main, but they were very close in about a week or two because the tree roots had gotten so deep in the main one. Um,
get
any
backed up.
it would have backed up. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a pipe a lot in the Ann Arbor area, and I'm sure you heard of it as Orangeburg, um, which was a pipe. Essentially it was a paper mache type sewer drain that they used when they had shortages in steel when the wars were going on. So they started using this. Like I said, it was essentially a paper mache drain pipe that over the years just deteriorates, and so we see that a lot around here. And like I said, getting that replaced. Once you got to start getting into the ground, it's pricey.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So that's
want,
something I would recommend. So, and even these newer houses, which, I think mid late 70s and on, it's been PVC, out to the road. But, I think it was maybe 2 years ago and it was a 6-year-old house, I think. And they had the sewer scoped and it was all PVC, but, they had issues where it was bellying and one of the joints had gotten busted by a tree root and they needed to replace that. And it was less than 10 years old. So I think a couple $100 for a sewer scope, is a good idea. Yeah.
okay. Well, thank you so much for your time. If we do
Yeah.
get some questions later, I will make, actually, because this is live, I have to tag you guys in it, so that way you see that,
Yeah.
and if I get them, I'll bring them to your attention, and look forward to continue working with you.
Yeah, well, I hope to see you soon, Patrice. Thanks for having us on. Again, we're based out of Ann Arbor. We pretty much go everywhere. So give us a shout.
Oh yeah, if you want to say really quickly too, how people can reach Integrity Inspection Group to schedule their
Yeah,
inspection.
so our office number is 734-772-2789. Jamie will answer the phone. That is my sister. She does a great job. And obviously, our website is integrity-inspectiongroup.com. You can Google Integrity Inspection Group. We're really proud of our ratings on Google. We have hundreds of great ratings that you can read through. But yeah, we'll be happy to help work and do a good job.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and hope you have a great day.
All right, Patrice, thanks. Hope to see you soon.
You too. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
If you've enjoyed watching this video and would love to stay up to date when I have more content like this or something similar that you may be interested in, please like and subscribe to this channel and click the bell so you get notifications. And I hope you have a great day.